Hi, everybody. Welcome to our new episode. Welcome back. We've had a 2-week break, but welcome back to our new episode. And our new episode is, Does Mindset Matter? And so I'm here with Betty Albee. I want you to know we are sponsored by the Institute of Metaphysical Science, and there is the website URL. I invite you to go and check it out. Check out our offerings and what's available. We have different events and everything like that. So welcome to the live cast today. How are you doing, Betty?
I'm doing fine. Having trouble figuring out how to get the volume up and down, but I'm doing fine.
Excellent. So here we are. We're going to be
Explain
talking about
by mindset, Kim.
What?
Explain what you mean by mindset.
So when you talk about mindset, and does mindset matter? I think it talks about it says fundamentally, it addresses your attitude, it addresses self-limiting beliefs, it addresses all the things that when you think about what's possible for you, why do you put a box around for you? And you might say, oh, I don't put a box around it. A lot of people do. It's like, I talk to people every day and it's like, well, what's possible? And well, I thought this was, but maybe it should be this, or, I think I'm just going to go for this, or I could never see doing X, Y, or Z. And so you have to then look at it and say, well, why not? If that's something that you really want, or that's what you see, then what is it? And does mindset matter? So I was in a conversation this morning with Betty and I said, does mindset matter? What is the scientific metaphysic view of mindset? So I thought this would be an interesting conversation because we all hear it. I think we hear it a lot about self-limiting beliefs. You could look at it from a lot of different angles. What do you see when you think about mindset, Betty?
Well, I see a position regarding whatever is going on in your life. I see an opinion, if you will, decision made somewhere along the line that says this is the right thing to do, or this is the thing I think will be most helpful to do. So that's why I'm doing this. And I think metaphysical science, which doesn't credit the two-legged animal with thinking capacity, but rather is the identification of thinking that's already going on universally, intelligent functioning, and the listening for an already functioning intelligence is different from being stuck with or hung up on your opinion or judgment about what is the thing you should be doing.
Right.
And one of them boxes you into a fixed position. The other one leaves you in a position, kind of open to what might be possible.
Right.
And that's why I don't really go with quote unquote mindset so much as I do with a question comes up. What direction should we take, or where do we want to go, or what's the next action? And I think of listening, a real willingness to see what's wanted and needed in that moment,
Right.
allows a much broader response. And I think science tells us that the human being of his own self is not capable, you see, of visualizing or doing or performing or figuring it out. But the presence that you are, calling itself him, that presence already is the done. And a listening for that, and automatically walking into or stepping into a solution much bigger than you might have otherwise put in place.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that makes any sense or not, but really being a listening for what the universe has going on, if I can word it that way, frees you from your human limitation of what you think Betty might be up to doing or what you think Kim is full of, and opens you to the whole gamut, if I will, the whole possibility that life is. And there may be openings you've never thought of before that can show up.
Exactly.
You know, there's this thing about human living that has a stubborn streak to it. You get stuck with something that you're sure is the right way to go, and you've got it all figured out, and you're upset if it doesn't go that way. And it could be a very limiting place to stand. So if you can acknowledge that that's there, possibility, but do a listening for what else? What else? What else?
Well, I think, doesn't that point to attitude? Doesn't that point to, you know, your point of view, what's currently happening?
Well, yeah, and it also points to a willingness, you know, willingness to be open to something you may never have thought of before.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean you'll go that way, but the willingness to be open leaves a wide space of action. And you'll find as you listen that you know which way to walk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And part of that gets into intuition too.
Yep. And instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep.
Intuition and instinct are just a feel for this is the way I need to go, when you're able to pay attention and not be a reaction machine.
Mm-hmm. And you know, I found this statement that Mrs. Laird made that says, in the light of science, we see reality in every concept. Christ, what Zeddy referred to as the divine manifestation of God, is the individual potential of every human being to be divine.
Right.
Every single one. There isn't a single living individual that doesn't have that potential right there,
right,
all the time. It's, and I wrote, you know, in my book, to the extent that we accept the meanings as assigned and allow our horizons to be circumscribed by established custom, we are deriving our future entirely from the past.
Right.
Yeah. So we want to see the human condition and its current method of operation is recognized in all its states and stages. Automatic human reactionary behavior sets limits and dictates actions. And if we really want to be ourselves, we want to step beyond that. That's always there. That's always a possibility. But whether you know it or not, we're divine every moment, whether we know it or not. And when we accept it, we step into possibilities we may never have thought of any other way.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think also there's this, whether we know it or not, we always live within the boundaries we have set or accepted.
That's the automatic setting.
And that's the automatic setting. But then if you really take on the divinity of who you are, there are no boundaries. Those are ones that we imposed, self-imposed, unwittingly.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's that.
Yep.
Okay. Well, very good. And I know that there is one other quote that I have here. All science is divine. Human thought never projects a portion of true being. So say a little bit about that.
So read it again.
All science is divine. Human thought never projected the least portion of true being. That's Mary Baker Eddy.
Yeah. Human thought can't project anything. It doesn't have the capacity to do that. It isn't like what it does is wrong. It's like you can't ask the broom to not sweep. You can't expect the shovel, you know, to raise the window.
Right.
You have to allow it to do what's within its range of capacity to do.
Right.
And the being of you is the capacity to be, do, and have, not the look of you.
Mm-hmm. I like that. The being of you has the capacity to be, do, and have, not the look of you. It's not about this.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
But you have what to work with, so on you go. And It's the willingness to allow the being that you are, the being present, allowing this thing to look like it talks and speaks and so on. That being will never lead you wrong.
Right. So as we think about mindset and we think about the holidays, I want to kind of bring in a different conversation a little bit, in that this has been an interesting year, probably the most different year than I've had in my entire life. In terms of, back in March, when somebody said to me in early March that all the major cities were going to shut down, I was like, oh, come on, that's not even possible. And now we look at it like, well, when are we all going to open back up? And so it's been a challenging year, particularly here in the United States. And I don't know that anybody who's not touched by at least a few people having been lost this year to what's happening, people who've or what have you. And so when you're coming into the holidays are always kind of a tricky time for people. So that's one of the things when you look at mindset. So let's talk about holidays and mindset and scientific metaphysics, and what's some to explore there that would leave people empowered moving into the holidays. I mean, Christmas is, almost a week away.
Yeah, I think that you want to take a look, especially this year, at this thing called joy. And science teaches that joy constitutes being. And you can also reverse that and say being constitutes joy. So my joy does not have to be diminished, because this year is very different from any other year. If I really face the facts, every year is going to be very different from every other year, because infinity never repeats itself. So willingness to have it be different should not diminish the joy of the experience of living. And that joy is universal. It's present whether it looks like or not. I remember struggling with it when Mrs. Laird said to me, "You're joyous whether you know it or not." I said, well, what good does it do me if I don't know it? Well, it isn't like it's set up to profit me something. It's like, if I don't know who I am, how can I be free? And when I know who I am, joy is what's present.
Right. So then what would you say to people who it isn't looking too joyous? Tons of unemployment. We've got, if you just look, people can't be with family in many cases. So I just am curious, and then I hear that depression is super high all over the place. It's just, just tons of depression going on. So what would science have to say about that? What's something that people can sort of work with or play with that would give them somewhere to stand heading into the holidays?
Well, depression is something that assumes control when you have a fixed way, a fixed expectation, a fixed willingness that things may be only that way. Because if they aren't that way, and you really stuck with that and hung up on it, you have no opening for joy. You have no opening for being yourself.
Right.
It's almost a case of, who am I going to be? Am I going to be Betty with her disappointment because it doesn't look like it looked 5 years ago? or I can't have what I had 5 years ago, or I can't go where I went 5 years ago, or even 2 years ago, or even a year and a half early.
Mm-hmm.
So what? Is that what's going to govern my joy? Is that what's going to govern my capacity to just be and include everything and everyone in the joy that's present, the joy of being, the joy of aliveness, the joy of willingness to see solutions occur for everything troubling mankind this minute?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the source of the solution, the willingness to have it show up and show up now and show up strongly and show up illuminating the freedom and the peace and the openness that living is. I can't pour that into last year's expectations. I have to be open to something that I've never heard of before that would be right now expected.
Mm-hmm.
And in being right now, joy is the presence possible if I'm willing. Peace is the presence possible if I'm willing.
Mm-hmm.
Freedom is the presence possible. Right in the face of all those pictures that don't define that at all, because
Right.
the identifying language that those pictures really are shifts with who I'm being.
Mm-hmm.
And right here, right now, with all those circumstantial things, peace and joy and power are possible because they are the presence awaiting your willingness to live it actively.
Yep. Yeah. So for those of you that are listening, if you have any questions or any comments, please enter those into the chat or the comments section, and we will get them here and we'll be able to address them. So if you have any questions or comments, just enter those in. And if you're enjoying this conversation, you can give a thumbs up or a heart. And just let us know that you're appreciating the conversation. If you have any questions, just enter them in and we'll get to them. There is a delay, so you got to enter them in order for us to see them. It'll probably be a few minutes before they show up for us to react to. All right. So coming into the holidays, coming into, facing here's the stuff, the takeaways. So joy constitutes who we are, whether you know it or not. Joy is what's present. And if you're willing to give up your pictures of how you think it ought to be, and start to look at the perfection functioning that's present, joy comes forth. Would you say that that's accurate or no?
Right on. And the possibilities are something you would never have thought of.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
and even if you do have thoughts in the direction in which things are moving, just open it up to be willing to be exponentially magnified, because it actually constitutes all there is. And it's way huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. So what else, going into the holidays, what other things have you heard from people that contact you that are things that, people have going on? Then what would science viewpoint be?
Well, I've had interesting conversations. I'm trying to think back quickly. It's hard to pull it up right quickly. But people are concerned with completing things for the old year and getting ready for the new.
Mm-hmm.
And the willingness to have intelligence functioning and not have it be personal has you open to doing exactly what's in front of you to do without concern for what's down the trail. Because actually, down the trail handles itself when you're present now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So you have to kind of be willing to be with what's going on right now. And what tells me that right now is joyous or not joyous? And I allow
my point of view, my judgment.
Pardon?
It would be my point of view or my judgment.
Yeah. And you want to be willing to say, well, that's possible. I can set that aside, put it right over here on the shelf for a minute, and just look and say, wow, I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
If what's present is peace and joy and power, this is my best view. I got to pay attention to my seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. I think all of this harkens back to attitude. Attitude hits your mindset, I think, in terms of what is it that's going to dominate you. And I think that I think it also points to this whole thing about, am I a victim, a cause? Right? Like, am I living myself as a victim, or am I living myself as people or cause in living?
Well, it isn't like a decision you can make from the point of view of trying to be cause.
Right.
It's
Right.
like, who am I being?
Yeah.
Because that includes generative qualities. Can't decide to be generative like it looks a certain way. All I can give up is the thought that Betty has the capacity to do anything.
Right.
Say, well, Betty, you can allow that to be. Put it right there on the chair and let's go on.
Right.
You know,
Sure.
it's like, yeah, Betty's always going to look like whatever it looks like. But that's not the circumference of what's possible very minute.
Right. So we do have a question. Yep.
There
We
is
do
no
have
rim around what's possible.
Okay.
It's
All right. Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit for me to hear, but that could just be our connection. So we do have a question from Brad. Are there questions we can ask to bring our awareness to the moment?
Yes, there are. The first one is, who am I being? And the second one is, where am I standing?
Okay,
And I
so
know
give me an
Brad has heard
example.
both of those.
Yeah, but give me an example of who am I being? What are the options?
Yeah, well, I can look at the picture right now and say, well, am I going to be Betty sitting here talking, or am I going to be present as something infinite that calls itself Betty? And the infinite has no restriction in any. So I don't lean on what Betty did last night or 10 minutes ago. I open up, oh my goodness, the infinite calling itself Betty. Each moment is right now, right now, right now, right now, and it's all unique and it's different and it's unrestricted and it's full of possibility.
Okay.
So it's really the awareness, the willingness to be, the willingness to see that the infinite presence that has you calling yourself or Brad or Kim.
Mm-hmm.
There's something so much bigger I see in the mirror.
Right.
And that wholeness, that completeness is unrestricted in any direction you can take. So the freedom, the joy, the openness, the abundance, the universal presencing that you are is accessed when you can leave of you alone and be willing to just be present right now.
Yeah. All right. So any last words on this in terms of really looking at mindset? And I would say mindset matters. I think that that how you approach your perspective and your point of view, I think matters in your experience of living. What would you say to that?
I would say that it doesn't matter.
I think it matters in your experience. You're saying it doesn't matter in your experience?
Saying that it's to be aware that the mind that limits who you be. But mindset is not a reality of being. It's a point of view.
Mm-hmm.
It's a point of view that for practical reasons or convenience or whatever in our daily living, but we want to be awake once in a while to what's possible, way beyond that mindset. I'm Betty and I'm doing this job.
Right.
And I'm arranging that, and I'm going to be over there on Tuesday. Way beyond, there's something else going on. It's sort of summed up in the cornerstone of this science, which says all is infinite, infinitely manifest. And this is what it looks like right now, right now, right now, right now.
Okay. All right. So with that, I'm going to say thank you guys so much for tuning in for this episode. We're working out a little bit of our internet bandwidth issues here in San Diego. And so it's hopefully next week will be better. I'm thinking that next week, here's what we could talk about. Are you ready? I think next week we could talk about what is it that you're going to, that if you want next year, go, what does it take to live science fully? Moving into and practicing science, what might open up for you in the new year? So that might be an interesting
have
conversation.
everybody think about that so they'll be ready with some questions or some statements about it. And that'd be good.
Right. So anyways, and Brad says, happy holidays. Thanks for the conversation. You're welcome. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys again next week. So until then, over and out.